This episode is brought to you by thedolphinwars.com.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome to episode 381 of King Dolphin TV. Tonight is another exciting episode of Radio King Dolphin TV. Welcome to everybody. Welcome to the Not Ready for Pod Time players, and welcome to the chat and anybody who will be coming in. I am Raymond. I am the author of the Dolphin Wars trilogy of books and ruler of the greatest pod on YouTube. Again, welcome everybody. If you like the Radio King Dolphin TV, just cause the interviews that I do and all the other stuff that King Dolphin TV does, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification button so you get the notifications as soon as they come out. And also, if you are so inclined, please help the channel out here. StreamYard is not cheap anymore. And as Tim, FKHC 2005 says, this episode of Radio King Dolphin TV is brought to you by the tax agency of Snorty and Trike, who remind you to pay in super chat, stickers, or in the tip link. Remember, Trike is the true ruler of the pod.
Yes, that's true.
That's true. So there's the tip string. And anything to help. And also, let me welcome who we've got here right now. We've got our producer, Sandra, helping me out here and keeping me sane. And that's a hard duty to do. We've got Legatus Legionii, and we've got Snortopupus Cuber. So I hope everybody is surviving the heat wave or dealing with whatever bad weather's coming in, because I heard Snort is having some bad weather down in Florida in his hideaway from the north. So, that's it. We will get started in a moment. Let me introduce the Pod Time players. We've got Agent Pepsi 1, also known as the Darkest of the Sith. How you doing, ma'am?
Hey, pretty good. How are y'all?
Good. Looking forward to this reading. This is going to be an exciting one. We've got the amazing anti-derivative Jill. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you for having me today.
I'm glad to have you. And the outstanding Max Redstone. How are you doing, sir?
I can't avow or disavow knowledge of anything.
Hey. All right. Okay, so we will get started. Let's see. Okay, we got Swift -1. Hello there. Who says, Outback, bro.
No, it was Subway today.
We had DiGiorno pizza.
Yeah, that's good too.
Yeah. Stuffed crust. Yum.
Oh, that is really good.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so we're ready to get going here. This is from All's Fair, a Dolphin Wars novel. This will be chapter 24 to 31. So, Sandra says, try help finish the crests. Yep. So, we will get started. Again, chat. And
Does
here we
Trike have his food handler's license?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Hmm.
Oh, God. Let me
He doesn't need it. He doesn't need his food handler's license. All right.
Chapter 24. Lieutenant Commander Lorena T. Ando stood on the bridge of the U.S. Grant and saw the Space Defense Force shipyard just outside lunar orbit. She saw the remnants of the 3rd Space Defense Force. It consisted of 2 amphibious strike groups, the Kearsarge and the Chozan, and the Brazil battleship group. The U.S. Grant was assigned as escort carrier for the chosen ARG. She looked sadly at the fleet that had reflected at her first night back on the U.S. Grant. She entered Commander Adams' office. He was her executive officer while she was a weapons officer on her previous tour. She said,
Lieutenant Commander Lorena T. Ando reporting for duty.
Commander Adams, a grizzled veteran of many an escort ship, had gray hair, piercing hazel eyes, and a pale complexion that showed that he had spent very little time off of ship, stood up and said,
Welcome back, Lieutenant Commander. And may I say, that promotion is well deserved. Lorena, it's been way too long.
I'm glad to be back, sir, and may I say it's good to see you again, especially in the tall chair.
Well, when I was made skipper of the U.S. Grant, I told Fleet that I wanted you as my XO. Hell, if it wasn't for some obscure political maneuvering, you would be. But my kicking and screaming worked, and I have you now.
Thank you, sir, for the vote of confidence. Who's the taco?
Lieutenant Commander Ryan was a taco on Wellington. I knew him from some exercises, and I found he was one tricky bastard. I pulled some strings and got him reassigned here when Lieutenant Commander Mitchell was assigned to Gettysburg. This is where you belong. He handed her a box and pad. She looked in the box and saw the rank insignia of commander inside. Effective immediately, you are granted a field promotion of commander. Congratulations, Lorena. It's well deserved.
despite the shock, she was still able to say,
Thank you, sir.
Now, we don't have much time because we're due to evacuate Seeker today.
I thought we had a few days.
No, I have word that the CO of Traveler set his self-destruct protocol to destroy any enemy ship that had the nerve to dock on the station.
My God.
Because of that rash decision, Marscom ordered the full evacuation to commence tomorrow.
she took some time to get to know her crew by having one-on-one meetings with the department heads, and then prepared for combat just in case the commander needed to take the ship into battle. When she arrived on the bridge the next day, a communications officer handed her a note. She read it to the commander.
Skipper, a docking attempt was made on Traveler by 3 destroyers, 2 Martian-designed destroyers, and she gasped. Oh, the Sterling. And she docked at the station. And when she docked at the station blew up, destroying it and the 3 ships.
Damn. XO, I'm sorry about the loss of your ship.
That's okay, sir. I didn't feel very welcome there anyway.
The lie came easily.
XO, the Kearsarge ARG commander ordered a 10-kilometer exclusion zone. He also ordered that we are free to engage anything that enters the zone and doesn't squawk positive IFF, no questions asked.
As the ship started the evacuation, Lorena was in the CIC monitoring the situation board. and discussing combat protocols with the TACO when the general quarters alarm sounded. She looked at the monitor screen and saw the overflight and recovery. As Sijan departed the area towards Jupiter, she blew a kiss at it for Jan and his family as she pondered how easily she could destroy that ship. Soon the evacuation was completed, and Adams's voice could be heard on the intercom.
All hands, we are moving out at this time. The exclusion zone is in effect. I am taking us to the assigned patrol sector. XO, what is the ship's status?
She replied, all systems green.
TACO? Weapons are green and scopes are clear.
The ship moved out, and the evacuation went flawlessly. During the voyage to the moon, the battle group operated under strict radio silence, so Lorena continued to write letters to Jan, hoping for a chance to finally transmit them. She was surprised at how much she missed him. She listened to the Martian propaganda as they said that the UEG had been occupying the Jupiter system and conducting an economic war against the Union by continuing to its hold there. Despite denials of a blockade and their authorizing Martian transport's special docking rights at the asteroid shipping facilities to transport resources to Mars, the Martians felt this was not enough. She also saw intelligence reports that they started building more warships at both Deimos and Mars. She knew that soon she would have a fight against her own countrymen. She had hoped against hope that the Ando family would be the first casualties of war. U.S. Grant arrived at Port Armstrong, the extensive shipyard in lunar orbit. At the end of her watch, she went to her quarters to get some work done prior to starting the refit of the ship. When she looked at the refit schedule, she saw it was going to take a long time to complete. She sighed and started to write another letter to Jan. She knew that now that they were in port, she would be able to transmit all the letters that she had been writing over the last few days. Her letter writing was interrupted by knocking on the door. She said,
Enter.
And Adams came in. She started to get up, but he waved her down and then sat down on her bed. He said,
XO, we've been attached to the Bifrost test team.
Why, sir? I thought we were going to be involved with the reorganization of the Second Fleet.
I thought so too, but they need a big ship for the final test, and the powers that be selected us for whatever reason. We won't have much to do anyway until the reorganization really gets underway. Hey, look on the bright side. If it works, we're going to make history. Besides, you'll be able to see that flyboy husband of yours. Lorena smiled at the thought of that. Chapter 25. The months since the Space Defense Force abandoned the Martian system was a busy time. They reorganized after the debacle of the Martian evacuation. The entire time was spent integrating the remnants of MarsCom into the rest of the force. The sector commanders and Force Command determined that an autonomous rapid reaction fleet was needed for contingencies, so they decided to reinforce the Third Fleet from elements of the First and Second Fleets to make it a massive autonomous fleet, with the responsibility being the mobile strike force whenever it was needed. It would be placed under the operational control of the Commander Space Defense Force until it reached its assigned sector and passed to the sector commander. Eventually, the Third Fleet grew to a mighty armada of 4 carrier strike groups, 2 amphibious ready groups, a Marine Expeditionary Force, and 2 battleship groups. Meanwhile, on board Saijan, Lieutenant Jan Ando returned from a flight when he was called to Hardnose's office. He reached the office and knocked on the door. When he was granted permission to enter, he said, "Sir?" Markham said,
"At ease, Steel Eye. 31st Flight Division has placed a requirement for a bright young lieutenant with an intimate knowledge of the pod battle tactics to take out those drones that the Martians have. Do you have any idea where I could find an officer like that?
Jan groaned inwardly as he said, "Me, sir."
You just volunteered for a TAD and Flight Div weapons and tactics branch for the next few months. They want to have the pods available to all the wings in the division in case they're needed. Our deployment is winding down anyway, and so we'll be chopped to the division on a ground-based strike force. They'll explain to you what they need, but they want you there in a couple hours. You'll be on the first transport to Thunder Base, Base 7 Theta Alpha.
Aye, aye, sir. Jan left the office. In the asteroid belt was an area known as the Northwest Passage. This was a specially charted route designed not only for safe space travel through this treacherous area of the solar system, but to help with defense. The Saigon strike group made its ways through the massive chunks of ice and rock. This destination was asteroid Theta 7, which was home to 3 Space Defense Force bases under the command of the 4th Space Defense Force of Jupiter Command, JOVCOM. Its mission was to defend the asteroid belt and protect the approaches to Jupiter. The asteroid was one of many outposts in the belt. Jan boarded a transport shuttle that would take personnel to the asteroid. After it launched, he looked out the porthole and saw the asteroid Theta 7, which was a medium-sized potato-shaped asteroid about 121 miles in diameter. When one looked at the asteroid, they would only see its natural features and were impressed by the sheer size of the asteroid. The shuttle stopped its engines and held a stationary position above the asteroid. Jan looked, and he saw 2 fighters soar from a cave on the northern hemisphere. When he saw them depart, he said, "Wow, that's cool." The soon-to-be designated Fighter Division 3-1 was based on Base 7 Alpha, codenamed Thunder Base. It was 4 levels built inside a mountain on the asteroid. The lowest most level was the flight line area, containing the runway, taxiways, the squadron operations areas, and maintenance facilities. The middle level was the wing support area, and the upper level was the living area for the wing. The tip of the mountain contained the communications and sensor systems that supported the wing. After he landed, Jan took a tram car to the 31st Flight Division's headquarters at Base 7 Theta Alpha. Jan found his way to the tactics section and walked in. He saw a full captain talking with the lieutenant commander. The captain walked over to Jan and said, "Did we lose Max?"
No, he's still here.
Max. Okay. Max.
Yeah. Can you hear? Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah. Hold on. Okay. How's your dad?
He's fine, sir.
Good. I meant to visit him after he returned, but he never got the chance. I hear we're getting CVW-8 as well.
I guess, sir, our deployment is just about done.
Well, we could use the help if the reports are true. But anyway, this is Lieutenant Commander Legger, our defense tactics officer. If the two of you will be working very closely, the division CEO decided that even though we have the luxury of this sector's only defense suppression squadron at our fingertips, if we go to war against Mars, they can get stretched pretty thin. He wants the 3 wings to have defense against the spheres. Once we heard that, we decided rather than reinvent the wheel, we would hijack the officer who wrote the book on pod battle tactics. I talked to your dad and he agreed. It was no problem getting you here to work with us. What I want from you is to work with Lieutenant Commander Legger on first getting him up to speed on what tactics you've used and their effectiveness and limitations and what you need to get the wings ready. And also, once you have your plan of attack, you will be the one who will accompany him on briefing the wings. I hope to keep you only about 3 months doing this, and before you say anything, yes, you have room in your schedule to fly once a day, as long as you get your work done.
Aye, aye, sir. Captain Jeeves left the room, and later walked to Jan and shook his hand and said,
Is that me?
"Yeah,
Oh. I'm George Legger. I'm George Legger. Now let's get to work. You had a chance to fly with the pods after you reprogrammed them. What are your thoughts?"
Well, sir, the pods work great. They disabled the sensors and programming, usually in 3 pulses. What helps is that the EW model's sensor system was optimized to detect various frequencies and download the information to the pods. This shortens the trial and error time. He didn't mention that his gift gave him an advantage, but thought that mentioning it might cause more problems than it was worth.
Any downsides?
Since all the fighters have internal weapons bays, the only way to use the pod without scrambling the internal workings of the fighter is to deploy the pod from the bay. This causes penalties in maneuverability. It's not a problem in space where there's no friction that causes drag, but when you're in an area with limited atmospheres, such as Mars, you've got limitations. For example, we found that with the pod deployed, you can only do 2G turns. Another problem is that for obvious reasons, the pulses have to radiate downward. So you must maneuver the plane so that the pods are under you when they radiate. Another thing is the pods are larger than most Another thing is this pod is larger than most self-defense pods. When the bay is equipped with it, you can't load any weapons in it and have to use hard points for arms. This is why we only had one of the element have it so the other fighter could fight if it was needed. Since we had the primary duty of spear destruction, we didn't see it as a problem, so we had as many fighters as we could load with them, and to heck with weapons.
Can these be fixed?
No, sir, not without major structural modification to the fighter, such as putting an emitter in the tail section in order to radiate above the fighter. Or maybe we can place them on hard points on the fuselage so we can attach them outside.
That could cause problems stealth and have drag penalties. Also, we don't have the facilities to modify the fighters.
Then how about this, sir? We have the EC-104 Vampire command and control craft available with VAQ-101. I checked some of its specifications, and I think they'll suit our needs. I can run some simulations to see if we can modify them. This way, we can have an emitter available to knock them out and allow fighters to go in. We can also use E-150s as well. I've checked them out, and they will work.
It's a great idea, especially if we have 3 squadrons of them and not enough work to do for them to do. Contact the units and have them download the system's data to you and then work out the numbers. I'm going to contact Division Logistics and find out if there are any more pods out to be had.
Later that day, Jan returned to the office and said, "Great news, sir. The simulations that I ran showed the 150s can be modified to emit the pulses we need to destroy the drones. I also talked to some of their people, and they say they'd be willing to have a squadron modified to do the emitters after all. They only need to reprogram the pod."
Good. If we can modify one squadron, that would give us the ability to spread a couple ships to any mission package that would need it. I also think that we would need the weasels to have that ability as well.
Right now, VAQ-480 is the only squadron with the pods and the training to use them. I talked to my plans shop before I left, and they are planning on conducting training with the other squadrons before they deploy to the carriers. The only limiting factor is pod availability. We only took 12 pods from Seeker when we left. Saijan had another 12 for a total of 24, only enough to equip 24 ships.
I checked here in base beta. They don't have any of the pods, so we'll have to spread those out to the only 2 squadrons.
That would be fine, sir, especially if we can get the East 150s and the Vampires online.
Let's talk to the captain, let him know our findings, and see what we need to take to the Admiral. Chapter 26.
Ando was waiting outside the division commander's office. He wondered why he was ordered to speak to the admiral. Since the Saijan was winding down on the deployment, he knew that he would get another assignment. During this time, his staff was working on various contingency plans in case the Martian militia decided to invade. He expected that CVW-8 would be disbanded, and his squadrons would be needed to flesh out the newly formed carrier strike groups. The commander's secretary said that the admiral was ready for him, so Ando walked in. After he entered the division chamber, Rear Admiral George Smith waved for him to be seated. Ando sat down and said,
Admiral, it's a pleasure to see you again.
Admiral Smith smiled and said,
This just came in. This just came down from Flight Command. Captain Liddell retired due to health reasons.
I knew he was devastated by the damage he took during the evacuation, but it wasn't his fault.
But as you know, it's the commander's responsibility. The depression was too much for him, and he chose to retire. Too bad. He was a good man.
Yes, he was.
Well, the reason I brought you here is as a result of his retirement, they decided to make some organizational changes.
He handed Ando a pad.
Read the pad now.
Ando looked at the pad and opened his mouth in shock.
They can't be serious.
Yes, they are. Effective today, you are promoted to the rank of full Rear Admiral and placed in command of Flight Division. I'm getting fleeted up to join Jupiter's Flight Command. You'll be based on Thunder Base and commanding BAW-40, BAW-48, and VQW-52. CVW-8 will remain attached to Saijan. We're fleeting up Harvey to take over Saijan Group. The attack squadrons will go up to 40 and 48. Your command and control squadrons and 480 will join VQW-52. Your units will be based at Thunder Base, so we have unity of command. This division will provide the resources to flesh out several carrier strike groups that I am sure are coming down the pike.
I'm impressed, but me, as Rear Admiral?
You impressed a lot of people with your leadership. They knew that you would be a perfect choice. Now, the change of command will be within a week. Do you have someone in mind to take over as your deputy?
Ando did not hesitate.
David McCaffrey, if he's available.
He handed Ando another pad.
Flight Command must have been reading your mind because they issued those orders to R.A. McCaffrey.
Go ahead.
Ando looked at the pad and read, Rear Admiral, lower half, David McCaffrey, SFC-09756 is ordered to base 7 Theta 7 Alpha on 1 April 2161 for duty as Vice Commander, Flight Division 31, Smith said. He's scheduled to be on the U.S. grant for the test of Bifrost.
That's in a few days. Maybe I should meet him there. I've been dying to try these push boosters for the fighting ferrets.
The push boosters were a new innovation for the fighters. They were designed to give the fighters the capability for long-range patrol, Although Ando did not think that wild weasel craft would be effective after long patrols, he consented to place them on 2 jets. Smith shook his hand and said,
Congratulations, Admiral. I will see you at the Officers' Club for the wet down.
Later, Ando was in his office looking at the prospective applicants for the division staff when Captains Harvey, Weeks, and Hart requested permission to enter. He granted them permission, and as they attempted to go to attention, he gestured them to their seats. They were open-mouthed in shock as they saw the new rank on his khakis.
I want you to be the first to know that I'm assuming the 31st Flight Division within a week.
Harvey said,
I heard the scuttlebutt, but I had no idea.
Well, neither did I, but after the Mars debacle, they thought I needed some new responsibility. The new mission of the 31st will be a rapid reaction, strike, and suppression unit, and continue to supply units to carriers. I'm working out the staffing division, even as we speak.
Hart and Harvey said at the same time, Can I be your chief of staff?
No. First off, Admiral Harvey, you are going to charm school and coming back to take over the Saijan. Congratulations.
Ando smiled at the look of shock on Harvey's face.
Connie, you're my chief of staff. Your first order of business is to settle in R.A. McCaffrey.
Hart said, Sir?
He's going to be my XO when he arrives. Jerry, you stay with CVW-8 as its CAG. Good luck.
Weeks said,
See, sir. Well, good luck, and we'll miss you.
Don't worry, you two. I'll still be here on Thunder Base and still be flying, even more so now than ever. Now let's go and wet Steve's and my stars down.
And now we have Chapter 27. Project Bifrost was finally completed. Before the Martian crisis, it was decided that the travel time to Jupiter was becoming less and less cost effective. So in order to exploit the valuable resources of the system, a faster means of transport was needed. Before the Martian Declaration of Independence, the UEG Assembly granted funds to Project Bifrost. The project heads briefed the Security Council that the project was nearing completion just after the Martian Declaration of Independence, and that all was needed to do now was to test it. The destroyer U.S. Grant departed its fleet anchorage above the moon and traveled towards a diamond-like construct on the bridge. Commander Lerona, Andrew looked up from her display and said to the ship's CO, Commander Mark Adams, Captain, we have Bridge Terminal Alpha in sight. Commander Adams said.
Acknowledged, XO. Communications. Advise them that we're ready. Also, can you have our distinguished guests join us on the bridge?
The communications officer said on the intercom.
Rear Admiral McAfee and Dr. Braxton, please report to the bridge.
Then to the channel.
This is U.S. Grant to Terminal Alpha. We are in position and standing by.
Grant, this is Terminal Alpha. We have you. Please stand by. We are beginning to sync with Bravo.
Project Bifrost had 2 bridge terminals. Bridge Terminal Alpha near the moon was made up of 4 spatial emitters placed in diamond formation. Terminal Alpha, the control center, located on a structure on top of emitter 1. Bridge Terminal Bravo was in a similar configuration placed in orbit around Ganymede. The process consisted of each terminal powering up each transmitter, firing a tachyon burst to the other three emitters. After the receivers gained the required amount of power, the 2 terminals would go into sync and direct the energies at each other. Once the energies met, the bridge would be complete, and 1 minute after, an object could be sent to the other terminal. Test with probes worked perfectly, and now it was time for a test with a regular ship, a U.S. Grant, that was chosen for this honor. Admiral McAfee and a civilian entered the bridge as outside the emitter panels glowed brightly one time, and then the receiver panels glowed. 10 minutes later, the space between the emitters turned into a kaleidoscope of colors. Adams ordered the destroyer forward towards the colorful aperture.
Grant, this is Alpha. You are cleared to enter.
This is Grant. Acknowledged.
Adams said. The destroyer entered the opening and found itself surrounded by the light show.
Grant, in 5 seconds, 5 seconds on my mark, the sync will start. 60 seconds after, you will hear Terminal Bravo. Follow their instructions. Goodbye and Godspeed, U.S. Grant.
Copy, Alpha. And then to Ando. XO, have all stations stand by for sync.
Aye, sir, Lorena said, and then she announced on the crew intercom, all stations stand by for sync.
Well, XO, in a minute and 5 seconds, we'll be either in Jupiter or stranded in hyperspace forever.
Adams smiled wearily. Lorena said, happy thoughts, Skipper.
U.S. Grant, mark.
The controller said.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, sync.
Suddenly, the light pattern shifted, and as she started a 60-second countdown, as the crew looked silently at the spinning patterns of light. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. She said, and then the controller of Terminal Bravo came on.
This is Terminal Bravo, U.S. Grant. We have you. Welcome to Jupiter Sector, and congratulations.
The controller said as the sounds of celebration were heard in the background. The controller continued.
If you can see space from your vantage point, you are free to depart the terminal.
U.S. Grant acknowledges and thanks for the ride.
Captain Adams said, and then he got on the crew intercom and said,
Congratulations, all hands. We are the first ship to go through the bridge and went from Earth to Jupiter in 1 minute. Helm, take us to Ganymede.
McAfee shook Adams' hand heartily and said,
Congratulations, Commander. I'm glad I was here.
Thank you, Admiral, but it was Dr. Braxton who made all this possible.
Dr. Braxton was the lead designer of the bridge. His assignment was to brief the commander-in-chief of the Jupiter sector on the test results, and the next phase of construction. U.S. Grant was in orbit around Ganymede, and a shuttle departed the ship with McAfee, Commander Adams, Commander Ando, and Braxton as passengers. As the shuttle descended, Adams looked at Lorena.
XO, I'm going to give the crew 3 days of shore leave as a gift for the fine work they did during the refit and the test preparation. What are you going to do with your time?
Ando said he was going to pick me up and take me to Thunder Base. I didn't get the particulars. I hope he's here. McAfee said.
Exactly where I was headed, Commander. I'm the XO of Flight Division 31.
Well, XO, your leave will start when you join your spouse. You've done outstanding work with the grant, and I'm going to give you that a show of my appreciation. Say hello to your flyboy for me.
Thank you, sir. The shuttle reached the landing pad, and as they disembarked, they were met by a throng of well-wishers. Everyone wanted to see the commander of the first ship to go through the bridge. Lorena saw Jan and Rear Admiral Ando, so she waved and ran into Jan's arms. After a passionate kiss, which surprised her, Lorena asked, "So, Ando, you been waiting long?"
Nah, the Admiral and I just got here.
She hugged Tran and said,
Admiral, Oh wait, no, wrong.
That could be me. Hold on.
Yeah.
She hugged Trent and said, "Admiral, you don't need to come." Endo said,
Nonsense. It's been way too long. Besides, I wanted to test the new boosters. What do you need to do before we leave?
"I'm done for 3 days. The skipper is going to handle the debriefing, so he let me go."
Good. Do you have a current flight physical?
"Yes, sir. The skipper told me to get one before we left." She said with a confused look. "Why?"
Because after you get fitted with a flight suit and outerwear, you'll be flying in my back seat. Jan wanted to fly you, but I pulled rank and told him that I fly you back. Jan said,
And
mix.
how cool is that, honey? I think that was wrong too, but
Yeah, that's fine.
she saw the new rank and said, "Sir, congratulations on your promotion. But what's going on?" Jen said,
You're looking at the new commander of the 31st Flight Division.
McAfee shook Ando's hand and said,
Congratulations, Admiral, and well deserved, I may say.
Thanks, Dave. We've got a lot of work to do.
When is the change of command ceremony?
We're planning it for tomorrow. We brought 2 dual-seat fighting ferrets with the new boosters. Dave, you'll fly with this young aerial assassin.
Sounds good to me, but Lieutenant, I have the front seat.
Jane groaned. Lorena said, "Great, Dad. Let's go," as they walked to base operations. At the command briefing, the Space Defense Force commander of JOVCOM and the commanders of both numbered Space Defense Forces were waiting for Braxton to give his briefing. He nodded and the doctor began.
Gentlemen, with the arrival of the U.S. grant to Jupiter, we can now declare Project Bifrost completed. Mitchell said, "Congratulations, Doctor. What is next?" "Well, we determined that a maximum of 3 ships can be sent through every 2 minutes. Then, because of cycle time and power consumption rates, after an hour, we must turn off the bridge for about 6 hours."
Mitchell nodded and looked at the 2 admirals.
Gentlemen, what do you think?
The 4th Fleet commander said,
This is great. We can now ship resources to Earth quicker than we do now, and we don't have to worry about the Martian blockade.
The third Fleet forward commander said,
Yes, it is. But we know, now that we know it works, this will mean war.
How so?
He asked.
Through the blockade, they received concessions from us while keeping us bottled up in Jupiter. With this bridge and the strategic advantage it gives us, we regain the advantage.
I have a message from the Security Council, and they agree with your assessment, Admiral. They think the Martians will want us to take it down and force command talk the Security Council into not giving in. So they ordered us to go on alert status effective immediately. My first concern is to keep the bridge functional because it's key to providing Earth with resources it needs and our reinforcement. I am thereby ordering a destroyer task force to reinforce you, and I want the passages blockaded.
He looked at Commander Adams.
I need a good destroyer captain to run that squadron. I looked at your record. Commander, and I authorize your promotion to Commodore effective immediately and order you to take command of Desron 2.6 and assign it to JOVCOM.
Aye, aye, sir. I'll place my flag on Icarus.
Who do you want to replace you?
Commander Ando. She's an outstanding ship driver and just the person I need in command.
Approved. I'll have orders cut for her when she gets back. Now, we have to get to work because I don't think the Martians will wait to attack us. I want your preliminary thoughts on the defense of the sector in 2 days. Put your forces on alert as of right now.
Chapter 28. Michael Mardre, the newly titled warlord of the Martian militia, walked into President Taylor's office. President Taylor put down the report he was reading and did not waste any time in small talk. He said,
Warlord, did you hear about the space bridge that the Space Defense Force created? Yes, Mr. President. We have already started to discuss our options. I see a major problem to our strategic posture if that bridge to Jupiter is allowed to function. Yes, I agree. What is the status of our forces? Our fleet strength is up to 400 ships on the line, including 3 strike carriers. We have enough fighters to supply 3 strike rings. I want you to plan an invasion of Jupiter with 2 objectives: to destroy the jump bridges and remove the space defense forces as an obstacle to exploiting Jupiter's resources. Yes, sir.
he left the room to begin planning. When the president was alone in his room, he thought to himself,
Your rear admiral, Ando, it's amazing. They will promote murderers. However, this will make my triumph even sweeter. At last, I will have my revenge on Tran Ando.
Chapter 29. As they flew the 2 fighters to Thunder Base, Lorena whooped and said to Ando as they prepared for their final approach to Thunder Base after a 14-hour flight.
Whoop me well, Dad. If I knew what this was like when I was a cadet, I might have tried my hand at it.
any regrets that you did it?
Nah, I'm a ship driver at heart.
Ah, well, I was that same way when I was a kid. I wanted to drive ships as I did on Earth, but one flight in these babies hooked me. Don't tell them I told you, but the Halsey strike group is going on a short notice deployment within a week. Jan will be with 101.
I thought that since he went to plans, he didn't deploy for a bit.
He ignored her statement and continued.
The Northwest Passage is one that we absolutely cannot lose. Once we heard that Bifrost works, they decided that we needed a carrier group deployed. They decided that they needed the 101 to provide swarmer suppression. Jan was the lead on getting their jets ready.
Ah, well, I don't know what we're going to do when I return to the Grant. Probably go back to Earth.
It would be safer that way. I'm surprised they didn't assign her to the strike group.
Are we deploying?
No, I've got a division to run. I already deployed half the squadrons to Halsey and Essex. I need the remaining strength to defend the asteroid. It turns out we are the last outpost between Mars and the Belt's resources. On a lighter note, Jan would never let me hear the end of it if I didn't give you one fighter ride. It was my pleasure, but I wasn't going to let him fly you. He would have gotten you sick.
Nonsense, he's a great pilot.
I know. I'm worried he does have a mischievous streak.
Well, I would have warned him that the first time I get sick, we would have halfway set for my entire leave.
Ouch! You sound like my wife.
Just then, the call came from the controllers requesting their status.
HUD 1, Lorena. This is Dagger 1, Flight of 2, requesting permission to land.
After a few seconds,
Permission
the controller
granted
said,
for permission granted for arrival beta. Welcome home, Dagger 1.
Copy.
Ando waggled the wings, signaling for McAfee to take his landing position. McAfee went 1 mile in the trail as Ando began his descent. When they saw the runway tunnel, Ando hit the landing thrusters, which brought the fighter further down in altitude. As the wheels of the fighter touched the runway, he hit full reverse thrusters in order to decrease his speed to 0. As he turned off onto the taxiway, he noticed out of the corner of his eye McAfee making a textbook landing. The two fighters taxied over to the 480th flight line. Meanwhile, Lorena stared at all the fighters along the flight line. Ando said,
We're sharing space with 48 and 40. Now they're part of the 31st Flight Division along with 52. I have administrative control of 3 wings.
Wow. That's great, Dad.
It's a lot of fighters crowding my base, but it's a good thing that this base was designed to be able to handle it. We can have up to 4 wings.
The fighters taxied to their shelter and shut down their engines. Then the plane captains unstrapped them and they climbed out of their craft. After they debriefed with the maintenance, they walked over to the operations building and returned their personal equipment to the life support building. Then Ando said,
Jan, Lorena, what do you have planned? I have 2 days off, so I thought we would catch up with things. Good. As long as you remember, dinner tomorrow. Wouldn't miss it, Dad.
Jan took Lorena's hand and walked to the tram car. Ando saw them go off and then said to McAfee,
Dave, why don't we have a drink in your office?
Sir, it's not my office till tomorrow.
Hey, might as well break it in. Just remember that Tanya has a wet down scheduled for tonight.
As Jan and Lorena entered their quarters, they were greeted by a chime letting them know that there was a message for one of them. As Jan looked at the screen, he frowned.
Lorena, it's an eyes only to you. I guess they found you, huh?
She looked at the message. As she read, she gasped and showed it to Jan. Jan read aloud.
Per authority of Jupiter Sector Command, the Destroyer Squadron 2.6 is formed today. Commodore Steve Adams, commanding officer. Huh. Looks like you'll be getting a new CO.
Read on.
Jan read, per authority of Jupiter Sector Command, Commander Lorena Ando is ordered to take command of the UES U.S. Grant DD-290 in 3 days. Woohoo! Congrats, honey. You have your own ship.
Do you think that I'm ready for command?
Honey, you're more than ready. I have to let Dad know. Oh, no. 2 change of commands in 2 weeks. I've never worn my dress whites that often.
He ducked a pillow thrown by Lorena. The next day, the entire 31st Flight Division was formed at the parade ground. From left to right was VAW 40, VAW 48, and the small division staff and BQW 52. Lieutenant Jan Ando was selected as the adjunct for the parade. Lorena was in her dress whites in the audience, sitting and watching the change of command ceremony with Tanya, who decided to sit in the distinguished visitors seating. The new commander of the Sector Flight Command, Vice Admiral Teresa Robinson, stood between the two commanders. Captain Hart said, "Attention to orders. By the order of the Commander-in-Chief, Jupiter Command Space Defense Force, Rear Admiral Tran N. Ando is relieved of command of the Saigon Carrier Strike Group." The division executive officer came to the podium and read, "By the order of the Commander-in-Chief, Space Defense Force, Rear Admiral Tran N. Ando is assigned to command 31st Flight Division." Ando walked over to Robinson and took the division's guidon from her and walked over to division formation. After some speeches from the officers, the division was dismissed. Ando took aside Captain Ron Lewis, XO of the 40th Flight Wing. Ando said,
How you doing, Captain?
I'm okay, sir. I'm sorry that Captain Liddell had to retire. It wasn't his fault.
I know, but Those damn drones caught all of us by surprise, but we're working on fighting them. Now I need to ask you a question. What do you want to do?
Respectfully, sir, I would like to stay and help the command transition.
I was thinking the same thing, Captain.
Ando handed him a pad, and as Lewis looked at it in shock.
The wing is yours. I hear that they're getting you an EC-150 squadron. You'll get the news about that later.
Thank you, sir. I won't let you down.
Ando called for a division staff meeting. He also called for the 3 wing commanders to attend. After entering the meeting room and sitting down, he said,
I just received some word from Flightcom that we'll be getting VAQ-990 Command and Control Squadron. They fly the EC-150 Command and Control craft, and all 10 of them will be modified to the Spear emitter standard. After I heard that, I figured the best place for them would be 5-2. I want VAW-40 to be fleshed out to a 3-squadron wing, so when we get 990 in the next few days, we'll reassign you VAQ-81. Ron, this will give your wing a suppression capacity which you'll need for your deployments. We still have to give fighters to the carrier strike wing, especially the Halsey within the week. But we have to defend the belt, and Thunder Base is in the best place to do it. So, in the upcoming weeks, I want you all to integrate the new squadrons. Afterwards, you need to sit down with the division's plan staff and plan for a series of joint exercises that I want to happen by the end of the month. Ando said to Lewis, I can give you 8-1 now, so that'll give you the jump on integrating them.
Lewis said,
Thanks, Admiral. I appreciate that.
Good. Now that we've had that decided, I have some news about the situation, and from what I heard, it isn't good. Despite what the Martian government is not saying about the deployment of Bifrost, they are working on reinforcing their forces. We have seen a 3-fold increase in their shipbuilding capacity. That can only mean that they're planning for an offensive, so I want you all to be ready.
Ando returned home from his office. He knew that Tanya was supposed to fly, so he was surprised when he saw her tram car there. He walked in and yelled,
Honey?
I'm up in the bedroom, Tran. Ando came up to see Tanya packing. He said,
What's going on, hon?
Read the pad. Tran took it and said, United Earth Government Space Defense Force Headquarters, Tanya L. Ando, Commander SDFR, is relieved of assignment to VFA 23 on May 18th, 2161. Tanya L. Ando, Commander SDFR, is assigned to Special Assignment Pentagon on May 19th, 2161. Signed, Commander SDF.
That's very short notice.
I don't even know what they want from me. He started to unzip his flight suit, and he said,
Well, we better take care of some business before you leave.
Tran, I hope you never grow up.
Chapter 30. 3 months later, Task Force 2.6.1, consisting of 4 destroyers and 2 fast frigates, was in orbit around one of the smaller asteroids in the Southwest Passage. This light task force was assigned picket duty. Because of the lack of power in ships, their first duty would be to get word out of any enemy incursion into the passage. The Martian Union had declared war a week prior. Force command would be incursions by enemy forces through the asteroid belt. To give adequate warning, a series of destroyer pickets were set up at the 4 passages. Their orders were not to engage, but to report. The duty was long and tedious. It was only due to professionalism of each of the ship's officers that tempers were kept from getting frayed. Commander Lorena A. Ando rose from her rack when the alarm rang.
She padded gracefully in her nightshirt past a picture of her and Jan taken at their wedding. She disrobed and entered the shower. During the shower, she remembered how she was trained to kill Jan Ando after she found out he was at the academy. Strangely, after meeting him, she lost any desire to do that. She was mystified at the effect he had on her, for that was when she fell in love with him. After emerging from the shower, she set her long hair in a bun and admired her naked body in the mirror.
Looking good, sweetie.
She put her hand on the small bulge on her belly and thought,
I'm starting the show. Damn. I will have to get a maternity uniform. They are so lame.
she thought she heard a Bronx cheer but blew it off. She blew a kiss at her reflection, then finished getting dressed and left her quarters. Lorena entered the bridge to the yeoman blaring.
Captain on deck.
She nodded at the watch crew as the watch crew nodded back and said,
As you were.
She sat in her seat as her yeoman first class Tina Robbins, handed her tea and the evening log. She said,
So, yeoman, did you keep the ship in one piece last night?
Robbins blushed and said,
Yes, ma'am. All quiet. Ship functions are nominal and combat had no sensor sightings.
So we can expect another day of the same, eh?
Lorena always thought Robin's constant blushing was adorable. She was impressed at how the pretty young red-headed yeoman could recite fact and status reports off the top of her head. When the young woman submitted her request for officer candidate school, she refused, suggesting that she apply to the academy instead, and that she would enthusiastically sponsor her application. Thinking about how she blushed at the news always made Lorena smile. Lorena turned to her XO, Lieutenant Commander Steve Braxton, the son of the designer of Bifrost, and said,
Well, it looks like we don't have to schedule any battle drills anytime soon.
No, ma'am, and that's a pity. Lorena knew that the XO was a stickler for detail, and the battle drills that he conducted were brutal. There was no doubt in her mind that the crew was owned to a fine egg. Their pleasant talk was interrupted by the CIC. Bridge, CIC, Braxton answered. Go ahead, CIC. We tried to do our comm check with the task force and headquarters. We can't get through. Lorena frowned at this. It was crucial that communication between the task force and headquarters be perfect. She continued to listen as the conversation continued. Braxton said, No problems at our end? Negative. We went through all the frequencies. They are negative. Lorena and Braxton looked at each other as she nodded. Braxton shouted, General quarters, battle stations. He started out of the bridge to take his station at the CIC when the ship was rocked violently, knocking everyone off their seats.
What the hell was that?
The helmsman hollered over the din.
As you were.
Lorena said as they rose from the deck. Out of the corner of her eye, she could see Braxton and the scurry of the CIC.
Combat report.
The CIC came back with, Bridge, Bennington exploded. It looks like the Icarus is taking fire as well. Yeoman Roberts held her arm limply and stared open-mouthed at the word that the task force had already lost one destroyer in the first volley from an unknown enemy. She recovered enough to take her station as Lorena absorbed the information.
Helm, hard to port. Combat arm all weapons and fire at will. Comms, get me headquarters. I don't care if you must use smoke signals, just do it.
U.S. Grant made a turn to port. As it turned, its gun turrets as well as missile launchers reached their ready positions. After its turn, Icarus went up in flames. The two frigates, Reliant and Vigilant, tried to turn into the threat, but they had already exploded. Bridge, combat. All sensors are jammed. We can't get any targeting locks. We are firing visually. The training and drilling that the crew endured showed that they had anticipated the captain's order before she said it. We lost the frigates. What the hell, ma'am? Palm Beach is falling back.
I don't care, just keep firing.
the cannons and missiles fired at their foe, which just came into view of the bridge. Robbins and the bridge crew gasped as Lorena looked at the fearsome sight. 2 obelisk-shaped and colored deep black ships appeared in the view screen. On the other side were single push-drive nacelles. To her credit, Lorena recovered and yelled,
Evasive action. All weapons fire on the closest ship.
The ship fired a salvo of blaster fire and missiles at the enemy ship. For the most part, however, the blasts were ineffective, causing only minor damage. The other ship fired at Bennington, obliterating the bridge and causing it to list. With 3 ships destroyed, another heavily damaged, and another retreating, both enemy ships turned their attention to U.S. Grant. They fired 2 blasts at the bow of the ship, ripping it apart from the rest of the ship. Lorena got up from the floor and unconsciously touched her belly before she got back into the chair. She looked out on the viewport and looked at the horror at her ship as it was sliced apart. She noticed that Robbins was bleeding badly from the wounds on her face and leg, and that she was holding her right arm in an unnatural position. Angry at that such a beautiful woman was scarred, she yelled out,
Damage report.
A crackling voice from CIC said, Hull breach at bow position, blast shields holding, all blasters offline. Some missiles are operational, we are still firing. Push drive at 50%. We lost 20 people, mainly in the bow. Lorena whispered,
This was a message. They know damn well who's commanding the ship.
Then she said to the CIC,
Any luck on communication?
Negative.
We have to buy some time for the breach to get out of range and call for the cavalry.
Palm Beach was assigned the task of getting out of range of battle in case of communications loss. The prime responsibility was to get the word out, so a ship was assigned this task.
Combat, launch everything we've got, including the kitchen sink. Target the lead ship. Lead ship's left nacelle.
The missile salvos were unleashed at a faster rate. They reached their target almost at the same time and impacted. The explosion filled the sky. The second ship turned and started to fire at the damaged ship, causing explosions all over the hull. She said,
Combat, do I still have you? Report.
Rich, we have 100 dead and there are hull breaches everywhere. We have minimal life support. All missiles expended. Lorena looked at the ship looming at their bow, what was left of it, and said,
Abandon ship. Engineering sets engines to overload in 5 minutes, then get out of there.
She turned to her bridge crew and said,
You heard me. Abandon ship. Yeoman, get a copy of the log into the emergency beacon.
really coherent due to her pain, said,
Ma'am, with all due respect, I would like to stay. Negative. I gave you an order. How do you respond? Aye, aye, ma'am.
The medical team took her as she tearfully departed the bridge. The last one to leave, she said loudly enough for Lorena to hear.
I love you, ma'am.
Lorena took one look back at the departing yeoman and listened to the countdown. She held the ship's position as the enemy started to bypass the damaged ship. When the countdown reached 1 minute, she opened the throttle and turned hard into the enemy ship, yelling.
Fuck you, bastards.
As the port nacelle of the enemy ship filled her view screen, she whispered,
I love you, Jan.
Her last act was to touch her belly and whisper.
I'm sorry, Katrina. I love you.
She heard in her mind.
I love you too, Mommy and Daddy. I hope it doesn't hurt too much.
U.S. Grant rammed broadside into the enemy ship just as the engines overloaded. The resulting explosion caused 2 asteroids to collide. When the flash dissipated, all the escape shuttles could see was an empty sky
in a large debris cloud. At New Sydney, Taylor reviewed the after-action report of the incursions at the asteroid belt. 2 flotillas made progress in the southeast and northeast passages. He then reviewed the report of the southeast passage operation. Sensor reports replayed the initial destruction of the task force. The U.S. Grant's hard battle on the first Predator-class ship, and the U.S. Grant's ramming and destroying the second one. The 6th ship was able to escape, and now the passage was heavily fortified with enemy ships. He sighed and said, "You were responsible, weren't you, Lorena?" He threw the PDA against the wall and yelled, "Ando, this is another crime you will pay for." A cloaked woman reclined in the couch in his office and said,
She was weak, my darling, and deserved to die. Those who sleep with the enemy must pay. You must keep focused. The war is just beginning.
Jan was on Halsey preparing to fly his last fighting ferret on suppression patrol before he transferred to the Vampire. In the back of his mind, he pondered when he would see his mom and Lorena. Tanya was assigned to Earth in May. He sent her plenty of letters, but they came back with no response. He knew that Lorena was on picket duty. Just as he started going to the duty desk to get his briefing, he heard in his mind a little girl's voice say,
I love you too, Mommy and Daddy. I hope it doesn't hurt much.
He paused and wondered what it meant. Sometimes his instinct gave him messages that he had a hard time interpreting. But he put it out of his mind, and he looked at his briefing information. He saw Ando and the squadron commander. He could see his father was crying. He knew his dad was under stress since his mom was called up and reassigned to Earth. But this was the first time he ever saw him cry. Ando walked over to him and put his arm on his shoulder. He choked up and said,
Jan, come with me.
Jan followed him into the CO's office.
Jan, Lorena was involved in an enemy incursion at the Southwest Passage. You can read the log entry later. Only 1 destroyer survived the battle. Her ship bought time for it to escape and get a warning out. Palm Beach returned to the scene after it accomplished her mission and rescued the survivors. Only 20 survived. Lorena stayed on the bridge of the ship and rammed it into the enemy ship. The task group commander is recommending her for the Medal of Honor.
Jan clenched his fists as his father explained the situation. Afterward, he said, with gritted teeth and tears in his eyes,
Dad, tell me what good is a fucking medal if she's dead?
Ando opened his arms to hug him and started to say something, but something in Jan's look made him pause. He said,
Lieutenant, you're off the schedule today. In your case, the beer light is on, even though it doesn't affect you. I'm heading back to Thunder Base. I don't want to hear that you were anywhere near the squadron for 2 days. All I ask is that you stay out of trouble.
He then turned just before he left the room. Jan wailed,
Oh my God, Dad, she was pregnant!
At an undisclosed location, a young woman woke up in a small bed. The room was sparsely furnished. All that was in the room was the bed, a sink, and a chair. The woman felt a chill and realized she was nude. She looked around and saw no clothing and only a small blanket on the bed. She put it around herself. The door opened and a cloaked woman entered. The cloaked woman said in a soft voice that cut through her brain,
Ah, Miss Taylor, I'm glad you're awake. You know, I was worried that you would be like all the other batches and not be viable. You are strong. I have a purpose for you.
The young woman stammered and said,
Well, what purpose?
All in good time, my dear. All in good time. First, you must be broken and molded into my image.
She turned away and walked out as two burly, shirtless men walked in. Chapter 31.
In early February 2062, the war was going badly for the Space Defense Force. Since the initial attack 7 months prior, the Martian forces maintained initiative for some time. The Space Defense Force tried to recapture the conquered passengers but were beaten back with heavy losses. They were forced to redeploy their forces back to Jupiter in order to prevent any further penetration into the system. Then the Martians became overextended and were unable to exploit any further opportunities. The SDF also had strong forces which enabled them to hold the line. Both sides, however, took heavy losses in the fighting. The Martian forces' technological advantage the Martian forces' technological advances and tactical deception enabled them to gain a significant advantage over the Space Defense Force. They used a combination of swarming drones and stealthy, high-powered capital ships to destroy SDF ships and fighters. Martian forces held the northeast and southeast passages, and only a rapid redeployment of ships in the Jupiter system and their extended lines prevented any advance into the Jupiter system. Meanwhile, the entry in the southwest passage was thwarted by the brave stand of the Icarus destroyer squadron. Despite 5 of 6 ships being destroyed, the stand of the U.S. Grant enabled Palm Beach to warn the rest of the fleet. We sent a heavy detachment into the passage and filled the gap. The Northwest Passage was never touched at all. Force Command speculated this was because Martian forces were not strong enough to conquer all 4 passages and defend their space. The presence of the carriers Halsey and St. John also helped keep them at bay. Reinforcements to the Jupiter system were made possible only with a Bifrost space bridge. The main problem for the SDF was because of the war, they only had the resources to build one bridge between Earth and Jupiter. Because of the limited capabilities of the bridge, reinforcements trickled into the battle. Fortunately for Earth forces, the 4 passages were designed with defense in mind and created natural choke points. In the 2 passages that were still under Earth control, SDS ships from Jupiter and the Esperbelt attempted to take the offensive and sorted into the Martian space. These offensives were blended with heavy losses. The Earth Command's involvement was limited because Martian forces had an easier route to invade if they chose. They had to maintain heavy forces to defend Earth. This prevented SDF from committing significant forces to the offensive or to reinforce Jupiter. Since Martian forces were weary of starting a 2-front war, they were content to hold the Earth's forces in place while attacking the true target, the asteroid belt and the Jupiter system. The result of this was a brutal war of attrition. On board the Halsey, Jen noticed that the theater was not full of aviators, as in previous times. Jen became more sullen and more as the war continued, as he saw that the ready room had more empty seats. Replacements were slow to come, so the squadrons had to do more with less. Because of this, his transfer to VAQ 101 was canceled, and he stayed with the Warhawks. He continued to volunteer for more dangerous assignments, in which he carried out near suicidal extremes. He always came back with a back shot up a fighting ferret. The captain walked in and said to the gathered wing,
Ladies and gentlemen, I know it's been a hard, bloody business. I want to tell you that I'm very proud of each and every one of you.
He paused for a moment and saw Jen in the corner of his eye. He heard that although Jen continued to fly his missions effectively, off duty, he continued to be driven. He never drank after the time and never contacted any of his family despite having permission. He talked to Rear Admiral Ando, still on Thunder Base, and said that he would have to speak to the flight surgeon. Ando said he would try, but still nothing has changed. He continued.
Let's not forget our shipmate sacrifice. It's the reason we still hold on to what we have. The reason that I called you is we have been ordered to join up with Sijon's carrier strike group. Our mission is to enter Martian space and engage the enemy. I will brief the squadron commander's senior staff on the overall mission.
He looked directly at Jen and said,
We all lost friends and loved ones. I don't want anyone going into this with a desire for revenge. I want us to win this war. That is all.
Jen was in his berth. It consisted of his and his roommates David's Houdini John's racks and a shared desk. Whereas there was a picture of Houdini's wife and child, Jen had no pictures at all. A contrast from before where Jen had photos of his mom and dad and Lorena. The flight surgeon was concerned that he might be internalizing his wife's death primarily because he did not do anything to mourn. He has not spoken to his father since Lorena died. He tried to write his mother, but the letters came back unanswered. The flight surgeon addressed it with his squadron commander and the CAG. He was given direct orders to drink at the club and did not. He just became more and more sullen in the privacy of his rack. His flying did not suffer, mainly due to his abilities to shut down parts of his psyche. However, everyone he knew felt that he was a time bomb. He was working on a design for something that came to his mind since the first encounter with the spheres. It was a drawing that looked like a shark. The door knocked and he said,
Go away.
It persisted until he walked over to the door and opened it. It was hard-nosed Markham. He said nothing as the squadron commander came in. His face showed no emotion as Jan stood at attention. Hard-nosed looked at the drawing and asked,
What's this? Taking apart?
No, sir. Just working on a possible weapon design to handle those spears.
You submitted it to ordnance yet?
Not yet. I still want to get some ideas ironed out. What do you need, sir?
Steel Eye, I've had it with your attitude. You're the best flyer I've had, and I can't take a chance of you killing yourself or any of the crews. I'm going to give you a choice. You either talk to the flight surgeon or a counselor, or I will transfer you off the ship. You're a time bomb, and I will not have you explode and kill any of the flyers.
Sir, boss, with all due respect, you can't.
Markham exploded.
Don't you dare tell me what I can or can't do. I don't care that you think that you're a hot shit aviator. You have not done nothing to show where you've removed your baggage. We are at war now, and I don't think that you know what's at stake.
He tossed a pad off Jen's rack. You are done, Lieutenant. I want you on the shuttle back to Thunder Base tomorrow. You go voluntarily, or you'll be escorted off the ship in chains.
Sir,
The next words I want to hear from you are what is required from an SDF officer when an order is given.
Jen looked at Markham and put his head down and said,
Aye, sir. And that is the end of the installment. Whoosh. Whoosh.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Excitement.
Oh my goodness.
What Agent Jackson?
Yeah.
What is this? Is this some sort of new ordnance project? No, sir. I'm taking up art.
Hey, Hello, DJ Knight.
Admiral, can I draw you as one of my French girls?
So, what did you guys think?
Oh, it was nice. That narration at the end was a bit long, but it was nice.
Ah, okay.
I didn't quite like the ending of Lorena, though.
You bastards took down my ship. I'm going to take you down. I
mean, that's what
Yeah,
Worf
the
would
pay.
do.
I think there needed to be a Roger Rabbit character that stayed on the bridge with her.
Well,
Please, Captain, we can still evacuate.
well, she tried to stay on. Robin tried to stay on,
Yeah, she
but
did.
she was released.
Yep.
I love you. I love you, ma'am.
Trike is waiting with the swear jar. Hello, Fez.
Is that Trike snoring?
No, I don't hear him. I don't see him anywhere.
I
He
don't
was
know. Maybe
snoring earlier. It was really cute and soft during the reading.
I didn't hear it at all.
I didn't either.
Well,
Yeah, he was snoring.
Oh, Sandra says he was snoring.
told
And
you.
hello, DJ Knight. All right. Let's see. Let's see.
No, it worked on me. I cried for the baby echoing its thoughts somehow. Not just
Yeah.
to Lorena, but to the dad too.
Yeah. I had a bit of a lump.
It's okay, Mommy. At least you can drink now.
That is evil. That is so evil.
Yeah. Let's see. Looking for any comments. Ready to toss something at the dolphin if he acts up. Let's see.
Which dolphin?
Yeah, me. Always, but so warm I'm having trouble staying awake. Yeah, it is. Snort says, a grizzly veteran. Oh, grizzled. Never mind. Let's see. Let's see. Jill's having Philly cheesesteaks. We had DiGiorno stuffed crust pizza.
You know what? Philly
Not
cheesesteak,
delivery.
though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not delivering. An idea for Radio King Dolphin TV. Reading of William Shakespeare's play. Oh, which one?
Would be
There's foul in space.
Okay. Let's see.
In space, nothing smells rotten.
Old Man Bird says, hello, Old Man Bird. Okay. I thought this war was over. Okay.
Well, no, didn't you hear from the lady in the cloak? It's just beginning.
Oh, yes, it's just beginning. Okay, let's see. And there's Fez. Hello. Getting blood work done. Good luck. With a $2 super chat. So those ships went boom then. Oh boy. No boom zone on Wednesday. Trike snores through the war. I like that, Jill. I didn't hear him snore.
Good. Hopefully he does sleep through 4th of July and the fireworks don't scare him.
Yeah. Tim says, and the crew sang as they waited to be rescued. Always look on the bright side of life. But Ba-doo-dee-doo-dee-doo. Trike approaches Raymond with the swear jar.
Just deposit.
Fez forever. This has to be the most swearing he has done on any show. Hey, yeah. Well, you know. Making up for lost times. And DJ Knight says, hello, Jill.
Hello.
And FKHE says to Agent Pepsi 1, you said duty. Okay.
Probably so.
Nice too. Hey, that's 7 to 9. Or that's yeah,
Jerry Ryan.
Jerry Ryan. Okay. And Snort is clapping pause. And bravo to all in the cast.
I'm taking my bow. Thank you, Snorty.
Yes.
Yay.
Everybody take a bow. This was a great reading. The things get exciting from here on in. Not that they weren't previously. Here's Pop Culture Breakdown.
Hooray.
Yeah.
Fast times at Ridgemont High today over at PCB.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thunder is
Yeah,
getting.
that's a good one.
Yeah, it was a good one. 126. Holy moly.
That's insane.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Yes, I owe you one. I owe you a boom on Saturday. Boomless Wednesday. Okay. All right. So, I think we've gone through the chat and we've gotten their comments, critiques, and stuff. I think it's time for show notes.
It's time for show notes. It's time for show notes. Yeah, with Mr. Raven and Sandra too. It's time for show notes. We're bringing it on. It's time for show notes. You've all been warned. It's time for show notes.
Okay, first off, before we go through the thing, let's show the picture that Snorter Poopus has this time. Let's see. Okay, Snort says, Snorter Poopus says, take care of a human, dolphin, doggo, Dalek, ferret, eagle, hedgehog, and panda ant. TM, a wholly owned subsidiary of the DolphinWars.com. And here is a panda ant, courtesy of Snorter Poopus Cuber.
Panda hand. I thought he. Oh,
Panda
wow.
ant.
Okay.
It's a
Oh, panda ant.
Yes,
Okay.
panda ant. It was my reading.
Wow. Gotcha. Well, it is white and black. That's cool.
Yeah.
I've never seen that before.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So that was that. And coming up this Saturday is Just 'Cause. On the usual Saturday time. A week from today, we're going to have Max Redstone coming to visit, giving us an update on what he's been doing, talking about the play he's going to be in this week.
Yep.
Let's see.
Oh, it's really a wasp, the panda ant.
Oh, okay.
This doesn't fly.
Ah. The 5th will be Just Cuz. The 9th, we will have Raquel SSG221 visiting us, talking about what she does. On the 12th, we're going to do our themed show, The Three Stooges. Yep. Hey, Mo.
They're almost as stupid as my students.
Oh boy.
Most of them. Oh God.
All right.
At least they're coordinated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. They're the students are not coordinated typically.
Yeah. So, yep. So that's what will be coming up, and I'll be sure there'll be another installment of All's Fair soon with the great Not Ready for Pod Time players. So Sandra says, if you're going to Pop Culture Breakdown, do a pod raid. And okay, that's not a poop business. So let me thank everybody who was here, and then I'm going to thank the chat. Guys, stick around afterwards. I want to talk about how we did during the reading.
Okay.
So we had DJ Knight. We had Old Man Bird. We had Swift -1. I think that was it. I didn't see anybody sneak in who was not. And thank you, FKHC, for the super chat. All right. And let's see, FKHC. All right. We had our producer, Sandra. We had our weekend co-host, Fez. We had FKHC 2005. We had Legatus Legionai. And we had Snorter Poopers Cuber. Hope the weather's not going too bad, Snort. From what you said, it's kind of getting nasty over there. All right, so that is it for the thank yous. And thank you, Agent Pepsi 1, for doing the reading. I know this was a surprise for you, and I knew you were probably going to get a little steamed.
Yeah, that was a bad one. Flipping that ship. That's she should have gotten they should have remote controlled the ship. They should have had a spaceship like that. I'm sure it has remote control abilities.
Not with most of it gone.
Okay, well, I mean that's yeah. I can see that.
Yeah. And
Or just autopilot and get out of there.
hey, the captain goes down with the ship.
That's why you promote someone to captain right before the ship goes down.
Yeah. Yeah, with no accident.
You're like on the Titanic, where Captain Smith said, "Hey, to the first officer, you're the new captain." I'm resigning.
Shortest promotion ever. Glug glug glug. Thank you, Anti-Derivative Jill. Your readings always are awesome.
Thank you. I had so much fun.
Yeah.
I liked reading the evil stuff.
Yeah. Yes. You can bring chills to people's. You can definitely bring chills. And thank you, Max. I know it was a little tough for doing double duty, but thank you very much.
You're welcome. Now I got to go to rehearsals.
All right. Well, we will end it here. And okay, that must be the Pop Culture Breakdown. There you go. All right. So we will let everybody go. You have a wonderful evening. And see you guys Saturday. I love you all.
Night.
Bye.
Night.